For the rest of us, anybody here ever work for a living? And if you've worked for a living, have you ever been in a job where you felt unappreciated and underpaid and taken advantage of and treated unfairly? Yeah. If you said no to any of those questions, you can go home now, go ahead and go to brunch, enjoy the weekend. But for the rest of us, what's going to happen is we're going to take a look at this thing called employment and work, and we're going to look at it as a spiritual practice, not as an obligation, not as a means to an end. Of course, we're doing this in honor of Labor Day. I'm sorry, it's still funny to me. I spelled it the Canadian way, and my word processor was like, no, that's wrong. Anyway, so you know what Labor Day is all about, right? It's a day off to acknowledge the common worker, those who labored in their jobs. Now, of course, it's become a 3-day weekend, and we all celebrate it. We all enjoy having this. In fact, in my family, we really did have a Labor Day because my sister Beth was born on Labor Day, September 2nd, which sometimes falls on Labor Day. So we have a lot to celebrate always on that weekend. So we're going to take a look at the word labor. And we're going to understand maybe where some of our negative attitudes about our work may have come from. Here are some of the adjectives or the synonyms for labor: drudge, effort, strive, struggle, toil, work, plod, slave, sweat, strain, travail, trouble. No wonder we hate our jobs, right? For many of us, this is how we describe what we do, and we do it for many hours every day. We groan about going to work. We count the days and the hours and the minutes to the weekend, especially the long weekend. In fact, many of us think of our work as being a life sentence, and when we retire, we get time off for good behavior. And yet practically all of us, not everybody, because I know we got a lot of entrepreneurs in this center, but practically all of us have to do some sort of gainful employment in order to live. Because we live in a world of exchange. For most of us, we exchange our labor for pay and for compensation. And most of us feel as if we are not paid what we're worth. And I am here to tell you, you can take this to the bank, you would be right. No one is paid what they are worth. Because how can you put a price tag on something that is priceless? Each one of us here, regardless of what we do for a living, regardless of how much money we have in the bank, each one of us here is worth a fortune. Because each one of us is a direct and a divine expression of God. Each one of us is precious beyond measure. Put your hand right here and say, I am precious beyond measure.
I am precious beyond measure.
So surely, this activity that we call work has to be based on more than something just getting paid. Because none of us is paid our true worth. So here are some questions to ask us as we're exploring this idea. Are we thinking of our jobs as being an expression of God? Are we seeing the work we do as being valuable and being a meaningful gift that we are giving to the world? Are we recognizing that how we do our job is reflective of how we see our own value? Everybody go like this. In other words, we may not feel as if we're being paid what we're worth, yeah? But are we also giving what we are worth? Are we doing all our absolute best in the work that we have chosen to do? And I say chosen because no one is forcing you to do your job. No one is forcing you. You may feel obligated. You may feel like you're compelled to do it, like you have to do it to make a living. You may feel as if there's nothing else that you can do. But in this teaching, we teach self-responsibility. That means that we are in the jobs that we are in because we choose to be in the jobs that we're in. We should share with you what Ernest Holmes said. Man is free to choose anything which he wishes, but he must accept the responsibility for his choices, because inexorable law will create his experiences according to his choices. Man is free to choose anything he wishes, but he must be responsible for his choices, because the law will create in the experience according to our choices. Sometimes it's really hard to be in this teaching, isn't it? You know, sometimes I want to go back to being a victim, but I can't. So the question is, what are you saying about the work that you're doing? What are you choosing to think about when you're there? Are you railing about how unappreciated you are, how underpaid you are, how everyone you work with is a jerk? Trust me, I know, not anymore, but in the day, you know? But if that's what we're thinking about, that's what we're putting out into the universe, and therefore that's what we are receiving back. On the other hand, if we think about the work that we do, regardless of what it is, as an homage to God, as an expression of love, then we can turn any situation around simply by changing our minds about it. There's a wonderful book, actually we're going to do the next 200 class that we're doing in October, November, is on this book called Spiritual Economics. And this is what Eric Butterworth said in this chapter about working. He said, work is and should be considered by every worker a giving process. Let your work, whatever it may involve, be an outworking of the creative flow, engaged in through the sheer joy of fulfilling your divine nature. That's really, really key. Because what we give in our jobs is what we receive. This is the inexorable, don't you love that word? Say it with me. Inexorable. I love that word. It is the inexorable law of circulation. Now you may be sitting here thinking, in fact I know some of you are sitting here thinking, well, this sounds perfect, Dr. Pat. You have the best job in the world. And you would be, can you believe this is my job? This is my job. But it hasn't always been my job. As I've shared with you all before, I have done a variety of things. I've cleaned houses. I was a gas station attendant. I was a bartender, and that was kind of fun. I was a switchboard operator. I've stuffed, honest to goodness, I've stuffed envelopes for a living, for hours on end. I've had to answer to multiple demanding bosses. I worked for a crazy man, seriously, and his son-in-law. If you think that wasn't interesting. But what I am here to tell you is that when I learned this that I'm teaching you today, when I learned this and I shifted my attitude about work, and I went from being a victim, and I can be a victim better than anybody I know, went from being a victim to being a person of self-responsibility, my work shifted. Not only did my experience in whatever job I was in shifted, but you notice I'm not in those jobs anymore. Is this making sense? Is it making sense? That's how I manifested the world's best job, by learning to appreciate what I was currently doing, seeing it as a spiritual practice, which then shifted all the energy around it. And the most amazing thing is, it lifted me out of some of those really, really icky places into a job where this is what I get to do. This is the work that I do. Here's something Eric Butterworth said. See your work not just as a place to tediously make a living, but an opportunity to joyously live your making. Look at your work in terms of the privilege it gives you to grow as a person. After all, growth is what life is all about. Everybody go like this. So that sounds nice on a Sunday morning. But how do we make our work a spirit? How do we really do it? Make our work a spiritual practice. You know, if you're toiling and laboring, how can you change that to loving what you do? Well, I happen to have a few simple tools. You know, I believe in practicality. Ernest Holmes says we spend far too much time in theory and not enough in practicality. So I'm going to give you a couple of tools. If you can't get them all down today, you know, you can always watch the video on our website on about like Wednesday morning after I've done the talk. So you can check that out. They're really, really simple, and this will help you to transform your life. So the first one is start your day with a prayer. Now, I know most of you start things with a spiritual practice, whether you read or you meditate or you jog or, you know, whatever. But I want you to add into your already established practice an actual prayer about how your work is going to turn out for you in each and every day. I've actually written one for you. As I go to work today, I go in love. I do the very best work I am capable of because I am expressing God in my individual way. There is no one else who can do this work just like me. So regardless of my situation, I am doing unique and special work. I rejoice in my ability to participate in the exchange of energy with the universe through my work. And so it is. Can you imagine how things would transform if you started your day every day sincerely doing a prayer like that? Email me if you want a copy of it. revpatc@verizon.net. The second tool is to, throughout the day, remind yourself of the spiritual truth. For every activity that you do, do some sort of an affirmation or a statement of truth. For instance, when you answer the phone, this is really key. Think to yourself that the person on the other end of the line is the divine talking to you. You know, that's what namaste is. The divine in me is honoring the divine in you. And so when you're on the phone with somebody thinking, this is the divine talking to me. Maybe you're given a new assignment and you're not very excited about it. Think to yourself, I am grateful for the opportunity to grow and learn. If things get difficult, use affirmations to remind yourself of the truth. I'll tell you one of the ones I used to do. I probably shouldn't confess this, but I will. I would take a bathroom break. And I would go in to the bathroom behind, close the door, and I would do a prayer, or I would do affirmations, or I would simply do breathing exercises. It helped me get back in the flow. Hello? I just hurt myself. Here's another one. Keep a visual reminder of God in your work area and eliminate from your mind what I just did, because that was not an example of that. You know how we keep pictures of our loved ones on our desk and our work areas? It keeps them in our loving thoughts. Well, how about something that reminds you of spirit? It doesn't have to be conspicuous. It doesn't have to be like an altar or anything like that. It could simply be a picture of something lovely in nature, or someplace that you long to go, or a beautiful piece of art that thrills you, or a beautiful car, or a beautiful house, or something that will remind you of the beauty and the possibility, the potential of the universe. Here's another one. This one's kind of hard sometimes. Do the best you can, regardless of who notices. You know, when we're doing our job and we're just doing it for pay, we want our boss to know we're doing a good job, right? But when we do a good job, regardless of who's watching, we are honoring the creative source of our being. And when we honor the creative source of our being, we are reminding ourselves of the truth of who we are. Here's another one. View your work as being in service to others, no matter what it is. If you're flipping burgers, if you're selling houses, or you're building houses, or you're teaching children, or you're cleaning bathrooms, or you're a bartender, you are in some way helping someone else. See your work as a means of giving back, of helping. Because we know that when we give ourselves freely, when we give ourselves in service, we will receive in kind. It is another one of those inexorable laws. This last one, maybe I'm talking to the gents, but I think I'm talking to a lot of us. Work hard, but don't be a workaholic. In other words, don't make your work be your identity. That make sense? Yes. Can I get an amen to that? Yes. Because not only is your work your way of expressing God in your life, but you need to take time off to recharge. You all know I believe that, right? That's why I take a lot of trips, you know? Taking time off is a spiritual practice. Even the Christian Bible tells us to take a Sabbath, right? So work when it's appropriate to work, and play when it's appropriate to play, and rest when it's appropriate to rest, because life is about balance. So we need balance between our work. We need balance in our life because we live in a balanced universe. So if you follow these are simple, right? Put a pretty picture on your desk and do affirmations when you go to the bathroom. Pretty much it, right? And take a break every once in a while. If we practice these, it is possible to turn our work into a spiritual practice. Because the truth is, when we see God in everything, everything becomes a spiritual practice. I have a wonderful quote here by Saint Jose Maria Escriva. Pretty good, right? Who wrote, God exists for us every day in the laboratory, in the operating theater, in the army barracks, in the university chair, in the factory, in the workshop, in the fields, in the home, and in all the immense panorama of work. Understand this well. There is something holy, something divine, hidden even in the most ordinary situations. And it is up to each of us to discover and reveal it. So, love what you do and understand that it comes back to you every time. So have fun this weekend. I'm going to the Stampeders game tomorrow. I understand it's a Labor Day tradition. Yes, indeed. I love you, and so it is.